Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to part 2 of my Thrawn series. What is Grand Admiral Thrawn? An introduction to the Chiss. My name is Billy Goop and I'm glad you're here. The Chiss ascendancy. Thrawn's people, his nation, his home, to whom his allegiance lies, to who he's allegiant to. So according to my research, we don't know exactly how long the Chiss have been around, but it is accepted that they have at least been around as far back as the Jedi-Sith War, which ended in 1032 BBY. According to Wikipedia, the Chiss ascendancy is an aristocratic, oligarchical nation located inside of the unknown regions of the galaxy, west of the Outer Rim, or, as the Chiss referred to it themselves, the Chaos. The power structure of their government is quite flexible but hard to navigate. At the top of the structure, we have the great families of the Syndicate, and they hold the executive, judicial, legislative, economic power. Under them is a number of great families, also within the aristocracy, followed by thousands of lesser families. And even though those lesser families had no political power, they're still Chiss, and the Syndicate serves all of the Chiss. The number of ruling families or great families, it's not fixed, and individuals are able to rise and fall, move throughout the families, whatever kind of suits their political gain. It's no easy task, but it is possible. And even within those individual families, there's a strict hierarchy, and it goes from blood to cousin to ranking distant to trial born to merit adoptive. If you're born within the family, obviously you're blood. Thrawn was a merit adoptive. He was born into kind of a nothing family, and he was adopted by one of the 9 ruling families, the Myth. That's his name, Myth Thrawn Naru, plus Odo at a different time. That's a different story. So you didn't have to be born into the family. If you were, it's more advantageous, but that's not the only way to gain power and success and prestige. And speaking of Thrawn's name, Chiss names have 3 different components to it. The first portion is going to be the familial name, the family name. The second portion is going to be a given name, and the third portion is a word representing societal factors. I'm not too clear on what that last portion is, but it has something to do with maybe who you are, what you're growing up to be, where you fall in society. It could just be another given name. And inside the middle, that's where you get your core name, what people address you as. They just only use the full name in very formal settings or in situations where the power structure really needs to be established. The Ascendancy guarded their existence very closely, and to most of the unknown regions, they were just legends. Outside of the unknown regions, they weren't even really known. And this was because the Ascendancy was rooted in isolationist principles. The Chiss Ascendancy had no great desire to expand their empire, expand their power structure. They instead dedicated their resources to research and discovery and self-preservation, science and art. Chiss philosophical teachings regarded war as pointless. They had a philosophy that embraced the idea that you are not to intervene in another people's problems, and they had a strict policy prohibiting preemptive strikes. Now, if you're thinking, oh, is this the part of the story where Thrawn has a problem? Yeah, this is the part. This is why he was exiled. The Chiss chose a passive non-intervention, and even if they had refugees coming to their planets, they would almost always be turned away. The reason Thrawn's philosophy differed from the Chiss Ascendancy's is that it's not that he wanted to go out looking for problems. He knew that there were problems out there, and he knew that his hands would be tied behind his back when a problem arose, and he knew how to face it, but he had to wait for them to make the first move, which ultimately gives his enemies an upper hand above him. Right? That's what an upper hand is, an upper hand. He didn't want to wait. If he saw an opportunity, he wanted to pounce. And now he's a Grand Admiral in the Imperial Navy, or what's left of the Imperial Navy. Anyways, the Chiss held this view on war, but it's not uncommon or impossible for their history to hold stories of Chiss civil wars, infighting between the families, within the families. It's a really messy political landscape. I want to say it works for them, but ultimately, I don't know what's going on with the Chiss right now in Star Wars history. So as I mentioned before, like 10 seconds ago, the Chiss did tend to keep to themselves. And any ventures into the greater galaxy, or what they call lesser space, were not encouraged. They did have the expansionary defense fleet, which was not solely used as a defense fleet. It was also used to conduct that research and that scientific study, like I mentioned earlier. They were kind of going to the edge of the chaos to discover if there are any potential threats out there. The Chiss ascendancy isn't regulated to one planet only. It's actually comprised of a couple of different systems. For example, the Chila system, Dioya, Onfra. The capital planet of the Chiss ascendancy's name is Chila. The capital city is Zesplar. And Chila was home to the headquarters of both the expansionary defense fleet and the aristocrat. Way back in the day, before Superweapon kind of destroyed their sun, Chila was homeworld to billions of Chiss. I think it was something like 4 billion Chiss. Like I said, the sun kind of went away because of Superweapon and kind of destroyed it, and the Chiss did it to themselves in order to protect themselves. Anyways, this caused a diaspora to different planets, such as Avidich, Rentor, Sarvichi. And it's actually very interesting because the Chiss are very strategic. Like, Thrawn gets his strategic mastermind from his people. He's special, but ultimately his people kind of think in a similar way that he does. Most creatures in space do not know the homeworld of the Chiss. And if they do know the homeworld of the Chiss, they know it to be Chila. Now, when this catastrophic event happened and this mass exodus happened, the Chiss Syndicate made sure, if you're looking for the Chiss, you're looking for that one planet, Chila. That's a strategy. They don't know that there's dozens of other planets, other systems out there. But also they kept this a secret from the Chiss people themselves. They told everybody, like, hey, you know what, something bad has happened. Uh-oh, we're all going underground. And there are 4 billion of us underground. The Chiss people think that there's that many people over there, when in reality, Chila is kind of like a winter ice planet. It can't sustain that much life. In order to self-preserve, they tell secrets. What else do I want to say? They speak Chiun. That's their language. Way back in the day, their ancient language was called Tyboric, as well as various trade languages. So the Chiss, to each other, they speak Chiun, but to other aliens, they speak these trade languages such as Ta'arja, Cybisti, Minisiat. I think those are 3 big ones. And it is also interesting because inside the narration of the book, so I have the physical books, but I also, well, actually, I exclusively listen to the audiobooks, and then I'll use this for like references and going back and actually seeing how everything's written. But inside of the audiobook, when Thrawn is learning how to speak Basic, he gives Chiss, when they're speaking Basic, they have a Russian or Eastern European stylized accent. Very pretty. Okay, and that's kind of all I have for you. A brief introduction to the Chiss, their history, their people, their worlds. There is one other very important aspect, and it actually has to do with how the Chiss can navigate through the chaos. And I think it's a really beautiful, really interesting part of their story. They use a special tool, a force-sensitive tool. And that tool is a special force-sensitive girl, usually between the ages of 4 to 14. They have the gift of foresight, and they're called Skywalkers. And there's a very special Skywalker that I'm very excited to introduce you to. But you're not going to meet her until part 4. How is Grand Admiral Thrawn when we introduce you? And when I say we, I mean I introduce you to his friends, his family, his co-workers, his enemies. I know this was quick, but I hope you got some information that you were looking for. Did I miss anything? But before you tell me, hit like, subscribe if you want more content, and then correct me in the comments. We'll see you soon. I'll see you soon.